Welcome to Super Movie Brothers. Let's start the show.
This is a podcast on the Podfix Network. You can check out more shows like it at podfixnetwork.com.
Welcome to Super Movie Brothers, episode 134. I'm your host, Super Movie Brother Dave.
I'm your host, Super Movie Brother Jay.
And of course, me and Jay are joined by my wife, Lauren, to do our triple movie cocktail. How are you doing, hon?
I'm good. How are you?
So we're doing a triple cocktail this time around. 3 movies, 3 cocktails.
Epic.
And we're probably gonna get pretty fucking lit. We also have a challenge that comes along with this that involves us eating a large amount of ice cream in one bite. So
I'm just sweating that.
So we are going to be discussing the 3 Flavors of Cornetto Trilogy. Flavors with a U because this is all British. This is a challenge that came to us from Patreon from our good friend Alex Dudi Dutram. He wanted us originally just to do a Hot Fuzz cocktail. That Hot Fuzz cocktail came with all these fucking rules, and I threw all the rules out. And then one weekend, me and Lauren sat down and we watched all 3 Cornetto movies. And then I realized we didn't own World's End. So Lauren,
True story.
the dutiful wife that she is, jumped immediately on Amazon
And bought all 3 movies.
and bought all 3 movies.
Because it was just cheaper to buy all 3 together than buy one single movie. So now we have 2 copies of Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead, but who's complaining? Not me.
No, there's no reason to complain about that.
They're necessary things to have in your library.
These are all 3 fantastic things that we got here. And I absolutely love this trilogy. I love this series. There is similarities between them, but differences as well. And I think each one is as strong as the one before it. Obviously, everyone has their favorite, but these are all fantastic films that are truly, truly funny. Obviously, the films are Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and The World's End. So each one of us has made a cocktail for each of the films. Lauren, since Shaun of the Dead is her favorite, has made a cocktail for Shaun of the Dead.
Right.
What's your cocktail called, hon?
So I made the You Got Red on You raspberry cocktail.
And what are the ingredients in that?
In this drink, we have 2 ounces of raspberry vodka, an ounce of raspberry liqueur, 4 teaspoons of lime juice, a teaspoon of grenadine, some muddled raspberries at the bottom of your cup, shake it all together with ice, pour it in over that muddled raspberry, boom, you got a cocktail. And I know we garnished my drink with a wedge of lime and a raspberry.
Yep.
Of course.
Yep, and the wedge of lime brings out the rest of the lime juice that's in it, ties
Right.
it together, adds a little bit of sour to your sweet, which is really nice because your cocktail is extremely sweet. It's like butter.
Packs a punch. It does.
Yeah, it absolutely does because there is a ton of vodka in that.
And the muddled raspberries at the bottom there, it just looks like pieces of gunk and goo and
It does.
blood.
I don't care. I love raspberries, so
I love it.
I just ate it all up.
It just goes perfectly for the movie.
It really does. And all of these look great in their picture right next to each other. We'll be putting all these pictures up on Twitter, and obviously these will all go up on podfixnetwork.com with each ingredient and a little bit of write-up for it. It's pretty amazing. All right, so the next cocktail is for Hot Fuzz, and I made the Greater Good Ginger Nuts. What this is it's 4 ounces of ginger beer, 1 ounce of bourbon, 1/4 ounce of amaretto, 1/2 orange squeezed, 4 dashes of orange bitter. It's served over ice and garnished with mint and an orange wheel. What the inspiration was, obviously inspiration for Lawrence is the most famous line in the movie, pretty much.
Right.
You got red on you. Mine, the inspiration comes from Timothy Dalton's line at the end of the movie where he points the gun at Nicholas Angel and says, "Not another step or the ginger nut gets it." Which I absolutely love that line.
And he,
The
of
ginger
course, was
nut.
talking about...
Martin Blur represents damn near most of the village. Do you want us to go through the whole phone book?
Yeah, we'll put a call into Aaron A. Aronson, shall we?
The first name to appear in Sanford's phone books. And I absolutely love that scene. I love this movie. And this is, of course, the one Dudi really wanted us to do. So I felt like
Right.
this cocktail had to deliver. And I think
does.
I think
It's
it
a
does.
good cocktail. There's a lot in it, but it all
It's well
pairs.
balanced,
yeah,
right?
it pairs well together. It's really good.
I'm surprised, to be honest, because there is a lot.
There's
in
a
there.
lot in there, right?
That's right.
And it does. It balances out really nicely.
Well, what really threw it off was the amaretto, because if I'm going to
Right.
call it the ginger nut, there has to be something nutty in it. And amaretto is made with sweetened almonds. It's aged with sweetened almonds in it. So
I mean, it's very drinkable, but you could have busted a nut in there a little bit more.
Oh.
Wah, wah. Had to do it.
all right, Jay, what is the name of your cocktail and the film that you're doing it for?
I am doing The World's End. It is called The Blank Robot. Mine is 1 ounce of blue Curaçao, 4 ounces of Magic Hat number 9. Actually, I'll just say how I layer it,
Yeah.
because this is a layering type of cocktail beer.
It is.
It
and
is.
and
So-
it looks brilliant
Yeah.
when it's layered. It looks great.
It's hard to photograph, but when I first did it, it was beautiful. So I used a tall tulip glass because it helps with the layering
Yeah,
process.
not one of the tulip glasses that has a stem on it, but
Right.
actually like it's almost bell shaped at the top.
Yep.
Right.
Tapers down. It's like a beautiful woman's body.
Exactly. So
Shaped like that.
With no butt?
no, she's got a great
Does
butt.
she's got a butt?
yeah.
She does have a butt.
That's where all
Okay.
your Curacao sits.
Oh, I get it. Okay.
Yeah, so the bottom half, the bottom quarter, as you can say, I fill it up with ice. I then put in 1 ounce of blue Curaçao. I put in 1 ounce of club soda, and then I put a 1/2 ounce of lemon juice in. And then I just fill it up with Magic Hat number 9 beer. It's a little bit more of a fruitier beer. I garnish it with a lemon wheel. So it just comes out as a nice little balance
Right.
of
Yeah.
different kind of flavors, and depending on what glassware you use and how much you pour in, it's going to come out with a different kind of coloring.
It's true.
Well,
But
with
It's very
the really nice part
Right.
about it is because the 3 flavors of Cornetto, Lauren's is bloody, it's strawberry. Mine is the classic, which is the blue wrapper, blue for police. Yours is green, and they saw it as mint. So
Right.
what's funny is when you mix the yellow of the Magic Hat number 9, that beautiful golden yellow,
Right.
with the little bit of the blue that sits in the bottom, hanging
makes-
out in the middle is a nice
green.
little bit of green.
Yeah,
that
it's
sits
pretty
there.
cool.
And it looks great. It's
and obviously the blue is the blood from the robots in the movie,
Right, right,
or
right.
the blanks, as
The
you want to call them.
blanks,
So
yes.
that's hence the name, the blank robots.
Jay, I think you did a fantastic job, man. It's super refreshing. I love Magic Hat number 9 because it's a true pale ale. It's not a hoppy pale ale. It is a true pale ale.
It was definitely the beer that I only wanted to use. I thought it was, I know Lauren liked it. I always liked
Right.
it. I thought it was a good balance for a cocktail beer. Also with the color, and just it's simple. It's a simple beer. There's not too many crazy flavors going on to
Yeah.
it. It's very drinkable, and I'm overall pretty happy with it.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I'm
it's,
not
it's
always-
hard to do beer
Right.
cocktails.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. I'm not always a big fan of beer and liquor mixing like that together, but this is really good.
But 2 of us managed to do beer cocktails along with these films, which
That's
is
true.
So those are the cocktails. I highly suggest you guys all try them out. They will all be going up on podfixnetwork.com with all the rest of the movie cocktails that we've done. And all right, let's get into talking about the movies a little bit. So just the trilogy as a whole. Drinking is kind of a really big part of it, because the whole reason that is the Cornetto Trilogy is because in Shaun of the Dead, when Shaun asks Nick Frost's character of Ed what he would like from the shop, he says Cornetto. And the reason that he asked for Cornetto, the reason that was written in, is because while getting drunk when he was younger, Edgar Wright's hangover cure was a Cornetto, which if you're American, you don't know what a Cornetto is. It's exactly like a Nestle drumstick.
It's a drumstick, yeah.
Yeah, it's the same exact thing. And
Or a Coke. Right?
what?
Hot Fuzz, or Shaun of the Dead. The opening scene, he's walking in, he's got the hangover, he's got to get that Coke.
Yeah, well, that's
Oh, yeah.
so that's
Corner store.
That's my hangover
Right.
cure.
Right.
Other than Blowfish, our sponsor,
Of course.
You got to go to 4hangovers.com. Use the promo code SMBFish for your 15% off after you drink all 3 of these cocktails while
Oh,
watching.
yes. We will, for
3
sure,
Cornetto
tomorrow
Trilogy meals. Because we are drinking a metric fuck ton here
Yeah.
while doing this. Terrible idea for a Sunday night, but I wouldn't spend it any other way, really. So that's where the idea of the Cornetto Trilogy trilogy was kind of born, at least where that joke was born.
Right.
Then after Hot Fuzz was released, Edgar Wright was asked by an interviewer about the Cornetto joke. And Edgar Wright, he wanted to loosely tie them together with jokes. And one of the jokes, obviously the running gag of the fence.
The fence, right?
Shaun
It's
jumps
in
the fence,
all
it
3
falls
movies,
over.
right?
Right. Nick Frost goes to run through the fence and Hot Fuzz goes to jump over it and he just breaks the whole
But
thing
Simon
down.
Pegg clears it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nick goes right through the fence.
And then in the third one, in World's End, Simon Pegg goes to jump it and the whole thing falls
Right.
down. So
He jumps over a bunch of stuff, actually. I mean, he's tripping and falling. Sometimes they clear things, sometimes they don't.
So the
great.
fence gag was in there, and the Cornetto gag was in there. Again, they go to the shop, and Nick Frost's character gets a Cornetto. So an interviewer pointed out while they were doing promotion for Hot Fuzz to Edgar Wright, or he dubbed it the Cornetto Trilogy, and Edgar Wright just kind of jokingly went with it. And in the third movie, he again added a Cornetto and another fence scene. But really, what the theme is that ties all these movies together is adolescence and growing up. If you think
Yeah.
about all the characters in all of them, someone has to grow up. Someone has
You
to.
can call it whatever you want. There's
Right.
the same underlying theme.
Absolutely.
Just different variations of stories.
But in a different type of genre film. So when you have Shaun of the Dead, it's obviously the horror zombie genre with a romantic comedy in there, and how you have to grow up in romantic relationships,
Right.
where Shaun always took his romantic relationship for granted. It's only after the end of the world that he realizes how important it really was to him, and he takes it seriously. And then in Hot Fuzz, he's the young hotshot career guy who isn't willing to take a moment even
Right,
for
to
him
live his life,
To
to
live his
do
right.
anything, have a friend,
and he
have
alienates
a relationship.
He alienates his girlfriend, who
Right.
eventually leaves him for the other forensic investigator, Hololer. And he gets stuck in Dead End Sanford. And he meets a new friend there who, again, is nothing like him and kind of shows him a little bit of fun in life. And it's only after that towards the end, he lets his hair down, as short as it is, and starts to live. So, and then finally, the third one, The World's End, obviously, the whole point is for Simon Pegg's character to recapture youth in his mid-30s, and he has to let that go. He has to realize that
Right.
it's passed him by.
His friends, they all grew up, they got married, they got jobs, they're over it. But yeah,
Serious
but
careers.
other than Simon Pegg's character, who obviously has a lot of other issues going on,
Right.
He
didn't
does.
grow up, right?
Exactly. So in a way, they are all about growing up. But another thing that they all do beautifully, aside from the repeating jokes, and aside from the adolescence to adulthood themes of them, is they all do a wonderful job of setting the world up that they live in, that each character lives in, and then echoing that in the post world after whatever inciting incident happens.
Right.
So, you get the beautiful shots in Shaun of the Dead of Shaun walking to the store, and then he comes back. But after the apocalypse, after the zombie outbreak happens, he does it again, and it's beat for beat almost exactly
The same, right.
And he does
other than that, there's dead corpse walking around behind him.
and he doesn't notice it.
Yeah.
He even slips on blood at one point, and
why would
that's
he
it.
notice it? He's
Yeah.
probably hungover, tired.
Exactly.
He's going through the motions.
Yeah.
It's
Acting
just
like a
daily
kid.
routine, yeah.
And then the
Right.
same thing happens in Hot Fuzz. The swan comes back up again in Hot
Goddamn
Fuzz.
swan.
Well, it's just the one swan, actually.
Swan.
Any luck catching them killers yet? It's just the one killer,
killer,
actually.
Right.
So it all comes back again. And then, there's that scene where he's sitting in the police car with Nick Frost's character, and he's going through each of the people walking around town. He's talking about, why is that guy got a coat on,
Right.
It's not cold out. Why is that person pushing a shopping cart? Later on, when they actually go into town, they discovered the mystery that's going on. Everybody turns out in the shopping cart, it's guns underneath that big coat. It's a gun. And it turns into a bloody American action film. The
Right.
same things that Nick Frost idolized as a child and as an adult. And then, of course, with World's End, the whole point was they showed what happened when they were kids and they tried to do the Golden Mile. And then as they're trying to do it as adults, they're still going beat for beat through it, having the same fights that they had before, even two of them fighting over the same woman that they fought over before,
right.
until they meet their
Until things finally reveal themselves to being more than they thought.
Exactly. So, I just want to
Well,
go.
first of all, can I just stop? First, we have to give a shout out for Edgar Wright. These movies would not be the movies that they are now if it wasn't for Edgar Wright.
Absolutely.
And his style of directing, his editing, it just would not work. It's so perfectly tailor-made for these scripts and for these stories that it's just, I just salute him. I love it.
And shout out to Simon Pegg, because
And of course, Simon Pegg.
thanks
writing
to
them
Shaun of the Dead, I love Simon Pegg. And he's like, any movie I see that pops up and he's in it, I'm like, oh, Simon Pegg's in it. It's got to be good.
That's true. We've watched some movies that we wouldn't have even heard of. There's that Kill Me 3 Times.
Yes.
The Australian movie where he plays
Yes.
a hitman. We actually wound up enjoying that. It's not a fantastic movie, but he's
It's
good.
fun.
He's good in it.
And we watched it because Simon Pegg was in
Right.
it. I'm like, okay, let's give it a try.
Run, Fat Boy, Run. Paul.
Right.
You
like Paul?
I love Paul.
Oh,
Absolutely.
Paul was funny.
Paul, come on. Paul plays so much homage
I
to
saw the trailer. That's all I needed to say.
to sci-fi culture that it's a lot of fun. It's not this. It's not these three.
Right.
Nowhere even near as good as these three.
Right.
But it's still fun and pays a lot of homage to sci-fi culture. You have Simon Pegg in your in your Mission Impossible movies. So
I do.
Yeah. So it's
He actually
because
works in there pretty well.
it's because of Shaun of the Dead and these others and Hot Fuzz and World's End that he's a bona fide movie star now.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's not the type of guy who looks like a bona fide movie star. He doesn't act like a bona fide movie star. No. It's that humble beginning. And all of these, they got their start from one TV show that ran from 1999 to 2001 that was basically directed by Edgar Wright, showrun by Edgar Wright, and written by him and Simon Pegg, called Spaced, which is an absolutely fantastic show. It used to run on Netflix. They don't have it on there anymore. If you have to buy that series, do it, because it is an absolutely fantastic series and it only increases your appreciation of these movies, especially Shaun of the Dead. So
Right.
yeah, so let's just go around the horn real quick. What's everyone's first experience with this? Because I would like to find out where and when you were in life when you kind of discovered at least the first Cornetto film that you saw. So we'll start with Jay. What's the first time you saw one of these three films, and which one was it?
I believe, oh boy, I think it was around the same time, either Hot Fuzz or Shaun of the Dead. And then I want to say Hot Fuzz.
Okay.
And this was not long ago. This is probably like 3 years ago.
You would have had to have watched Hot Fuzz when we did our original movie cocktail for Hot Fuzz.
Yeah.
That might be it.
And it could have been.
People can actually hear that episode on our Patreon. So if you go to, patreon.com/Super Movie Bros Podcast, you can hear our first pass at a movie cocktail from our old defunct show, Movie Cocktail, where we actually recorded it. And Kenny made a drink called the Scab, which is honestly
great name.
very
It's a great
similar to Lauren's drink, but Lauren did it better.
Figures.
So all right, so that's the first time you saw Hot Fuzz.
Yeah, and to be honest, might be my favorite one still. Out of the three, I just have to say it just hits me in the right note a little bit more through, like, from the start to the finish. It's just a lot more fun, enjoyable, snappy. It's just, I don't know. For me, it's just a lot more rewatchable than the other two films.
You are a fan of action films more so than you would be a
Right.
fan of horror
And
films.
that could be why. Yeah. And The World's End is a little sloppy at times, and it's very disjointed a little bit.
Well, they're pissed drunk the entire time.
Right.
And they're kind of like two halves of different
I think
films.
like World's End is more silly compared, like as far as like.
It is, but also the first half, the other friends are just boring stiffs.
Jay, you were just telling me that you thought you watched the entire movie
Right.
of World's End,
right.
but then you realized when you rewatched it for tonight, you were like, oh, there's robots in this.
Yeah.
You got as
Yeah.
far as before the
you thought it
robot-
was an indie darling movie that only involved
like a group of friends.
a group of friends drinking, and then you
drinking,
find out that there's a
sharing
sci-fi
stories.
subplot.
Knowing me, I probably threw it on late at night and I got too drunk and passed out, and I
like,
just
Jay,
passed out
the
and fell
movie's
asleep
about
before it
robots.
kicked over into the robot version of the movie. So
Jay just said,
Little did I
fine,
know.
fuck it, and he went to sleep.
Right.
Fine, whatever. Fuck it. All right, Lauren, what is your first experience with the Cornetto Trilogy?
So I started right from the beginning with Shaun of the Dead. I don't know where I was going, but I was walking through my living room. My dad was watching Shaun of the Dead. I stopped because I'm like, oh, British accents. That's what I heard at first. And my dad really doesn't.
And she got a little wet, so she sat there.
No. It's just that my dad always said he didn't like watching movies or TV shows with British accents because half the time he doesn't understand what they're saying. So that was
Now,
that
I find
was
this
him.
interesting. Is your dad like a fan of like Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, like the stuff that's paying homage to?
The first time I watched Night of the Living Dead was with my dad. My dad showed me the movie and I was so scared. And I can't remember how old I was. I was probably like maybe 11 or 12 at the time. Super scared. But that movie also made me a fan of zombies. But my dad was watching Shaun of the Dead. I stopped for a minute. It was in the middle of it. I'm like, oh, God, this is really funny. It's really good. I'm going to have to sit down and watch it. So I was on my way out to do something, who knows what. But when I came home, I sat down, I watched the movie because I think he probably rented the movie.
Or it was on Stars or something like that.
No, I'm pretty sure. No, my dad, he rented the movie. So I sat down, I watched the movie, loved it. So right there, zombies, comedy, I was good.
All right. I think I've told my story before on the show, but might as well go through it again. Back in 2004, this movie came out on DVD, and me and my best friend Kenny at the time, we were losers. He actually used to be on the movie cocktail show with us. What up, Kenny? He's still my best friend. He just doesn't live around here. But
he didn't want to be a loser anymore.
He didn't want to be a loser anymore, so he got married and had kids.
He moved on from us.
So me and him, when we were bored, we would go out and drink, or we would go out and like find shit to do, but that was when we were with a group of people. When it was just me and him, we were happy sitting down playing video games or just watching movies and stuff and cracking each other up. So one of us had our license at the time, and we're like, you know what, fuck it, we got nothing else to do. I think it was like a Friday or Saturday night. We drove to Walmart and we just walked around Walmart to find something. Me and Kenny were huge George A. Romero zombie movie fans, and I think recently before that, me and him had a marathon of watching Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day of the Dead. So we're walking through Walmart and we see this DVD. It was new. It just came out and it was called Shaun of the Dead. And we read the back and, it was like this homage movie and it was a comedy and it was British and it
probably didn't cost that much money.
It was
right?
$19.99 because it just came out.
Okay.
It just came out. So me and him were like, I was like, fuck it. I'm gonna buy this. Let's
just got paid.
Let's go home. That was exactly it. I just got paid by my job.
Blockbuster dollars.
At Blockbuster. Exactly. So me and him grab the movie and we go back to my house and we watch it 2 to 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
And we're picking out everything that is a little homage to a Romero thing, or we're picking out the fact that everything that happens at the beginning echoes back into the end,
right?
And we're just having a blast watching it. And ever since then, I have followed Edgar Wright and everything that he does, and has made me such a huge fan of his, and made me such a huge fan of this trilogy and these movies. And it's something that it's one of the few times that like I went into a film and had zero preconceived notions. I didn't see a trailer for this movie. I knew nothing about this movie going into it. I saw it based on name alone and read a minor description about it.
Right.
And I was like, I'm sold. I'm fucking sold.
Right, and that's what happened with me. I've never heard of the movie. I walked past my dad watching this movie. I'm like, this looks hilarious, but I don't have time to sit down now to watch it. I'm going to watch it later because it was probably, again, a rented movie. And I watched it.
And I think if you didn't catch this movie because of the praise that it's gotten in cult film culture, then you came into this movie, these movies mostly blind.
Right.
And I think they kind of blindside you with how good they are.
Right.
It's almost like these are comedies.
But it doesn't take long before you're just completely immersed into it.
These are movies that are comedies that don't have a right to be this good, and they are.
It's true.
And I'm pretty sure we said it in last movie cocktail, but this Shaun of the Dead Hot Fuzz DVD set is what you bought me as a Was it Valentine's?
It was our first Valentine's Day together.
Valentine's Day gift, right?
That's right, yeah. Because I found out you love Shaun of the Dead, and I'm not sure if you had seen Hot Fuzz or not, but we were like, we need to get this. Like,
right.
This needs to be something we need to put on when we,
Because I didn't own a Blu-ray or DVD player or not one.
Oh, that's right. I bought you a Blu-ray, and
you
this
bought
is the
me
Blu-ray
a
I
Blu-ray,
bought you.
and then you bought me the combo Blu-ray set.
And
because you were like, I can't date a girl who doesn't have a Blu-ray.
And this is before or right around the same time that World's End would have been coming on Blu-ray.
Right.
These movies can take you on a strange journey, and for especially for me and Lauren, they remind us of a specific time in our life when we were young adults, which is exactly what these movies are about. Literally, young adults going from adolescence to adulthood.
Yeah.
So let's get into each one of them in order of release. So let's head over and let's start getting into our breakdown and discussion about Shaun of the Dead.
Red on you. You've got red on you.
You've got red on you.
Surviving. Surviving.
I get higher, baby. I get higher, baby. I get higher, girl.
Cornetto. Oh my God. She's so drunk. Where's safe? Where's familiar? Where can I smoke?
Take car, go to Mum's, kill Phil, sorry, grab Liz, go to the Winchester, have a nice cold pint, and wait for all this to blow over.
How's that for a slice of fried gold?
Yeah, boy!
All right, so now we're back to talk about Shaun of the Dead. Now, Shaun of the Dead actually came out of a night that was spent by Edgar Wright basically doing drugs, drinking, and playing Resident Evil 2. And he actually made an episode in the TV show Spaced in which Simon Pegg's character does a very similar thing. And he's basically taking out zombies in his dreams.
In his dream, right.
And that spawned this entire idea that Edgar Wright had to create a romantic comedy hidden inside of a genre film and to go balls to the walls and pretty much make a zombie movie. And Shaun of the Dead was born. So because this is Lauren's movie and it's her favorite one of the trilogy, I'm going to pass it over to Lauren just to talk about the movie a little bit. Just like, we're not going to go through the synopsis of it. I think everyone's
we're not going to go
too
deep. There's three movies we're talking about, and it's not one, so we're going to keep them very brief.
So let's talk about your favorite bits of this movie. Just like what really makes you geek out over this movie.
So I didn't expect you to start asking me all these questions about the movie and what I like about it.
Well, I mean, you love it so much.
I do. I love the movie. It is my favorite of the trilogy. And I mean, you know me, I'll sit there and I'll watch it over and over and over again. And I think one day I did rewatch it because I'm like, oh, I fell asleep the first time I watched it, so I have to watch it again. And you're like, but you've seen the movie.
So many
you
times.
have the movie. Yeah, I know, but I really want to watch it right now. And I fell asleep the first time. And then I would start watching it and like fall asleep at the ending. So I have to rewatch it again to see beginning and end.
I think my favorite parts, at least, are in the flat in the house, when it first starts.
Yeah, in the beginning when I guess when they first discovered there's this zombie apocalypse happening, and they go out in the garden and they're
how many zombies are out there? Don't say that. Say what?
The Z word.
Don't say it.
But
all dirty out there.
Is great.
I like the beginning when they first come encounter with Mary out in the garden, and she's just coming forward, and Simon Pegg is like, okay, no. I just broke up with, I just got out of a relationship. I'm just really not interested in
2
this
seconds.
right now. Yeah. And then she like falls on top of him because she's trying to eat his face off, and he's pushing her off. And Nick Frost is like 2 seconds, and he goes inside to grab the camera to go take a picture of what's going on outside. And
What's going on over here?
and Jay's
Look at that. It's like a lava lamp.
I see it.
Jay's on drugs right now, apparently, because
see
he's
it.
getting fascinated by colors moving in the light. So, okay.
You do know that different liquids can be different densities, right? Like oil and
I
water.
didn't really know
We were
that, though,
teaching
my
this
cocktail.
to Logan one day.
Yeah, we just actually taught Logan about the 3 stages of matter. So
I'm sorry. I'm 34 years old. I've already forgotten about that. 30 years ago.
Jay saw colors in the light.
continue where you
We
were.
lit my cocktail the wrong way.
So I can edit this all out.
But yeah, that first scene when it all, when shit went to hell, that was really funny, that whole part. And then of course, like the whole 2 seconds, that comes back to them over and over again. And because there's multiple times where Nick Frost's character could have probably stepped in to help, and he's always just too busy doing something else.
That's the whole point throughout the movie.
It's so funny.
So-
like that comes back.
I actually love their interactions
That flaw comes back over and over again.
with Pete. Those are my favorite interactions.
Yeah, with Pete.
Pete. He's not my friend. He's a fucking idiot. He is good for
What
a
does
laugh.
Nick
Right, like that
Frost
one
call
night
him?
we stayed up in college drinking peach schnapps and playing Tekken 2. Right, when was that? It was in college, Shaun. When is he going home?
What's he say?
Oi, cut!
Yeah, he's not home. He's not home.
He's not my friend. He's a fucking idiot. I absolutely love that. Well, fuck a diddle do, Shaun. And then, of course, Pete comes back later after
Right.
Shaun says, "Oh, leave him alone." and then he comes back in the bar as a naked zombie.
Right.
And he is the first one to bite Ed, and Shaun, "Oh, leave him alone." And he shoots him. He's a zombie that he gets a successful headshot on. So I do love all those scenes because everyone has that friend who grows up before them. Jay knows many of them. All of them have grown up
All
before
of them.
Jay.
Jay's still growing.
I'm still growing. I'm still a growing boy.
But I think the relationship aspects of it are the things that like get me the most. Like, when you take a relationship for granted, which I'm sure there's plenty in my run that I've taken for granted.
But so you're talking about
Him and Liz.
him and Liz,
Right.
relationship. But now, like, there's also him and his stepfather,
That's true.
Bill Nye.
Which gets completely it gets resolved pretty quickly as far as the film's
Right.
runtime goes. Have I mentioned that on several occasions Philip touched me? Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. It's not true, never happened.
But like,
But he did chase me around a garden with a bit of wood.
yeah.
Well, you did call him a you-know-what.
He told you about that?
So, yeah, he does have a strained relationship. And that's one of the
Right.
things, like, early on in the movie, he's constantly telling everybody that, like, he's not his father. It's his stepfather and stuff like that, that it's not his real father. Even though,
every time they go, your dad's
dad.
visiting you.
yeah, that's right, yeah.
He's not my real dad. He's just my stepfather.
He is one of my, of course, we talked about Love Actually with Billy Nye and
Right.
how he was my favorite character. Now, he is one of my favorite characters in this. And it's like,
Yeah, and he's only on screen maybe 10 minutes?
I don't want to make a big fuss, Barbara. I ran it under a cold
tap.
Just a whole bunch of drug nuts.
Yeah.
It's his interactions there, he's this very staunch British guy, but you find out that he actually does truly love Shaun.
Yeah, he cares about Shaun.
And the
Yep.
reason he's so strict is because Shaun never had any consistency in his life. He never
Right.
had anyone being hard on him. So he always thought that if he was hard on him, he would be the type of father that Shaun needed, where Shaun is your average kid growing up who doesn't want a stepfather telling him what to do.
Right.
Something Lauren's going to have to deal with eventually someday because you have a stepdaughter. So
True story. That kid's gonna hate me one day.
she loves you now, but yeah, eventually, somewhere around her adolescence, she will turn on you.
Yeah, probably.
But she'll turn on me too. So,
but you're not the one who has to deal with the line when I go to your room. No, you can't have your cell phone. You're not my mom.
You're not my mom.
That's what I'm going to have to deal with.
I hope I'm not around for those fights because
that's what I'm going to deal with.
But one of the things that's like great about Shaun of the Dead is I think like we've all been this before, right? Like Shaun is 29.
Attacked by zombies?
Yeah, exactly. Shaun is 29 and he is the manager of an electronics store. Not even the manager. He is the manager on duty when the manager calls out.
Right. Exactly. He's the senior customer service representative.
That's right.
It's
and
kind of like me.
But Jay, we've all been there. We've all been
Sure.
dead end at some point and felt that rut. And believe me, there's been plenty of times where I have been like, if the zombie apocalypse happened right now, I can start at square one and I get to start over again. And I would be probably in better off position by the time this all blows over.
I mean, I'm okay with that whole scenario only because we've watched a lot of movies, TV shows, and I'll be with you, so I know
I was thinking about that. I'm like, if there was something to happen, I would come here immediately.
Right, and we would be gone already because staying in your house is not
That's
safe.
right.
It's not safe to stay in your house.
World War Z is correct. Movement is life.
Specifically in a small house like ours, so it will not be safe.
Those who stay in one spot die. Those who move live, which is probably the only thing that Shaun does right throughout Shaun of the Dead.
Is he moves around.
Is he moves. Going to the Winchester is where it all goes to shit. And that was always the crux of his plan.
Make sure you stretch really well because you're going to be fighting constantly.
That part where they go through, the 3 parts of their plan. It's rescue mom, rescue Liz.
No. Rescue mom, kill Philip. Then go rescue Liz.
And then go to the Winchester and wait for this all to blow over.
Right.
And the whole point is that going to the Winchester is the bad idea. But everyone follows Shaun because he's the only one with a plan. He's the only one who knows what he wants to do.
Who do you have? So you have Ed, played by Nick Frost, who obviously wants to go to the Winchester. You have Liz, Shaun's ex-girlfriend. Who's she going to hang out with? Her flatmates, Diane and David.
David,
who's obsessed with her.
Who are dating, even though Diane knows that David is in love with Liz and has been since college, and she's just there to pick up the pieces.
And obviously he's a twat. And then you have
Feel free to step in at any time.
Yeah. And then you have
Didn't want to cramp your style.
Right. And then you have mom, who's obviously going to follow her son because she's a good mother.
Right, because Philip's dead.
And Philip's dead.
She followed Philip until he was dead.
But even Philip followed Shaun out to the car.
You're right. All right, got it. 3. I'll do the 3 honks thing.
And then they had to take Philip's car because Ed went ahead and crashed Pete's car.
I kind of cranged it.
Because he always wanted to drive Philip's car.
But like one of the that's one of the things is that he's the only one with a plan, which is why people wind up. It's not that he's the best person with a plan. He's the only.
If you sound confident in your plan, I'm going to follow you. It's going to sound like a good idea. If there's confidence behind whatever it is you're saying,
you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And guess what? Nobody knows what the fuck to do, so they're going to go and follow the person that seems like they know what to do.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It's a fucking zombie complex.
I mean, they even do call out that like Shaun's plan isn't a great one because when he runs into his co-host from Spaced, Yvonne, played by Jessica Hines, she's basically like, "What's your plan then?" He's like, "Go to the Winchester." All right, good luck. And then of course she has everybody with her boyfriend
who's similar to Shaun's,
but she's in a successful relationship where Martin Friedman plays her boyfriend, not her ex-boyfriend, and then I
forgot he was in that movie
and then at the end
2 seconds
he's in all 3 of the movies.
But I forgot he was in Shaun and I obviously knew he was in the other 2, but totally forgot about Shaun and Dad.
So he and at the very end there is her cousin who is exactly like Ed. They're both on their phone. So
and then the 2 college friends.
So they do point out that it's not a fantastic plan to go to the Winchester.
Right.
But I mean, while it all goes on and hilarity is ensuing the whole way, let's just talk about the scene that we love the most. And it is obviously when they take out the bartender with pool sticks to Queen's Don't Stop Me Now. It's the most fantastic music.
Who put this song on? It's on random.
And like that scene.
And the first epic fight sequence, right?
That's the first time I heard.
You're right, because everything else has been a little running here and there.
Yeah, that is the first
blowout,
right, and that is the beginning of the zombie horde descending upon the Winchester.
But we have zombies in that scene. We have Queen playing in the background, and then we have people killing zombies.
That's right.
It's pretty awesome.
And then, of course, after they take him out, and that was the first time I heard Queen's Don't Stop Me Now. That was actually the first time I literally heard that song.
And that's your favorite song?
Really?
And it's my favorite Queen song now. So.
Wow, I didn't know that. David.
That's saying something.
So after that, that's where they find out that the gun on top of the Winchester bar, who they've all debated the entire time through the movie, whether it's real or not, we think that's deactivated. Turns out that it is real, and Big John is connected, and dogs still can look up.
And then that just takes you back to the beginning of the movie
when they were playing video games.
Right.
So there's one gun, and it's going to be run by all the people. Shaun's going to do the shooting
because not everyone has a lot of experience shooting a gun. Everyone has a little bit experience here and there, so they figured let's put all of our experiences together as one to shoot this gun.
And they're all supposed to call it out. And in the beginning of the film, when Shaun was supposed to go to work, he sits down, he jumps into the game, which I believe was Time Splitters 2, to play. Ed says, don't you have to go to work? He starts calling out like, oh, top left, oh, nice shot. That's the game that they're playing. They turn a video game into real life survival in this movie, and that's again paying homage to where the whole idea of the movie came from with Resident Evil 2 and staying up all night and playing that while fucked up on drugs and alcohol. And so, as everything comes to a head there, everything that was a problem in Shaun's life is now coming back as a problem here in the apocalypse. So he's forced to deal with two problems at once. He's forced to keep everybody he loves alive and fight the undead, while also solving his familial and like friendship problems.
Right.
Some of them get sorted out for him. David gets torn apart.
Now, obviously, Mom is bitten.
That's right.
She's dying, and now Pete,
I think June and Barbara do live around here.
And then Pete's in the background being a dick. It's like, you gotta shoot Mom. You gotta shoot her. Move aside, Shaun, so that I can shoot her.
Yeah, David wants to shoot her.
And then that comes out that, David loves Liz. Everyone already knew it anyway.
And then he fucks off and tries to escape, and he gets torn apart just like in Dawn of the Dead.
Diane runs after David. Mom's dead. She turns into a zombie for a second before Shaun shoots her. And then Pete shows up.
And then, of course, at the, when we get to the end of the film, they all do, him and Liz do wind up getting saved by the military and Yvonne.
Right.
Yvonne shows, glad somebody made it, which is a line that she had in the beginning of the movie when he says that he's still dating Liz.
Right.
Good, glad somebody made it.
Right.
They did make it out together. They're living together. And of course, we're treated to one of my favorite things that the movie does is when he's flipping through the channels, they give you the story of what's going on. A crashed satellite, people coming back to being literally eaten alive.
Right.
And we get that little joke from Mom in the beginning of the film where she's just like, does Liz eat meat? Because I know a lot of people don't eat meat these days. Everybody's eating meat now, bitch.
I was telling you a couple weeks ago when we were watching the movie, when Ed goes, Barbara, we're coming to get you, Barbara. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yep, that's a reference to Night of the Living Dead.
Night of the Living Dead.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
I'm like, Dave, I can't believe it. And I'm like, it just made me feel good. One, because
it only took me 15 years to get it.
And two, that I got it without you telling me that was a reference back.
But of course, when they say Ash also called out, Ash is a reference to Ash from the Evil Dead.
Right.
So, so they, after they get rescued by the military, they're flipping through the channels again, and they're talking about how people are basically living with zombies and using zombies, which is kind of like what George A. Romero was like trying to say with his that zombies are people too. Of course, they're kind of using them as slave labor in Shaun of the Dead universe,
but you kind of have to,
right? And he keeps Ed alive. And in the shed.
And he kind of trained Ed to just play the video games when Ed goes to bite him.
Ed still goes to bite him.
Yeah, Ed goes to bite him, and he's like, no. And then he switches on the video game
but the whole point is he's learned to now balance his life.
Right,
he has his relationship, he has his job, and he has his best friend. And he has time for all of them because he's learned to do that. If only I can do that, because I struggle spending time having fun, spending time with you, and having fun.
Let's put this. Yeah. Dave only has fun when he's with me.
That's true.
So let's.
Well, I don't do very much without you. So.
Right.
So and then splitting it with the podcast, which I'll be honest, the podcast takes up
a lot of time.
50% of my time.
Speaking of podcasts,
work takes up the rest
is Jay still here?
Yeah, Jay's still here. So
Jay,
we're running long.
Yeah, you're in my world now. This is how I feel.
Jay, I do all the editing.
Talk.
You let me worry about when we've run long. All right, fella.
Same. We're 18 minutes in now.
So there was a proposed sequel to this.
Thank God it didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
I'm okay with that.
Because it was the first success.
Right.
And they didn't have a full scope of an idea what they wanted to do
with it. Which is amazing. Because like when films in America have success, it gets greenlit for a second one, and they start badgering the filmmaker to make another one,
Sure.
And Edgar Wright didn't. But I'll be honest, there was never actually a sequel in planning. They jokingly said that they were going to do one. And what they said it was going to be was Shaun of the Dead 2, but it was going to be called From Dusk Till Shaun. Instead of Shaun fighting zombies, he was going to go on a road trip and run afoul of vampires, and it was all going to play homage to From Dusk Till Dawn. And it wound up not happening because, let's face it, getting Hot Fuzz and getting The World's End was better than getting a sequel.
Absolutely. Yeah, no.
Shaun of the Dead.
Absolutely.
I was happy with Shaun of the Dead. I didn't need to see anything extra.
Do you guys remember when this came out and correlated to like all the other zombie movies? Was that in the same? Was it right before the influx of like all these zombie movies?
So it was.
I think it was in the middle of
like World War Z.
It would have been World War Z was like 2010. Like that was a little later on. This came out right around the same time as like 28 Days Later.
Right.
Oh, so before the craze.
So this came out in 2004.
So it's actually a good 1-2 punch.
It's kind of
28 days later, and then this movie.
It's kind of like on the crest. It's kind of at the base of that wave where that wave kind of crest in the late 2010s.
This movie certainly helped it push it over.
It did. This also came out right around this.
If you came across this movie during that time.
A lot of people do. And
like
little by little, it's going to help.
This wasn't a big U.S. release. And this also came out right around the same time as the Walking Dead comic book, which was a big deal that brought zombies back to the forefront. And Max Brooks' The Zombie Survival Guide, which was something that was a huge pop culture thing at the time that kind of pushed the zombie genre forward again. It was right around the same time as 28 Days Later, Zombie Survival Guide, The Walking Dead, all this stuff, and Shaun of the Dead. Like these things are what kind of brought zombies back. But I would say this definitely has its place in that pie of doing it.
I remember, like I said, when this came out, and
not to mention Zack Snyder's remake of Dawn of the Dead.
Right, and I stumbled across it walking through my living room. I just remember watching Night of the Living Dead or whatever it was with my dad. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so scary. And then that's how zombies got me. Like, that's how I got hooked on zombie movies.
And it hooked an entire other generation on zombie movies after it came out. So we've run a little long. I think we talked about some of the funniest bits. This probably sounded a little schizophrenic to everybody, a little bit of dissociated identity disorder. Probably, we sounded a little crazy, but let's move into Hot Fuzz and the film that we are actually charged to do from our patron Alex. So let's head over and let's start talking about Hot Fuzz and all of the good shit that did.
Want me to bother the chief inspector with this?
Yes.
You want me to get the chief inspector to come all the way down here?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Kenneth?
Hello, Nicholas. How's the ham?
Still a bit stiff?
Chief Inspector, keep your seat. Now, I know what you're going to say, but the fact is, you've been making us all look bad. Respect, sir. You can't just make people disappear. Yes, I can. I'm the Chief Inspector. When's your birthday?
22nd of February.
What year?
Every year.
Get out.
Hey.
When's your birthday?
8th of May, 1969.
You're 37.
Yeah.
Get out. When's your birthday? Out. You had one thing you haven't got. What's that, sir?
A great big bushy beard.
What's the matter, Danny? You never taken a shortcut before?
Yeah, I ain't I can see the views, what's the Mombo?
The power of Grayskull.
It's all for the greater good.
The greater good.
How can this be for the greater good? Shut it! Take back! Or the ginger nut gets it!
Here come the fuzz.
All right, so now we've come to Hot Fuzz, the second in the 3 Flavors of Cornetto Trilogy, and our patron, Dudi, the reason we're doing this, his favorite one, and Jay's favorite one. So this one follows Nicholas Angel, who has to go to the small town of Sanford because he's just too good at making everyone look bad.
Right. In London.
In London. and that is my favorite scene of this movie, is when he's sitting down and we're getting all those great cameos of Martin Freeman, Steve
Nye.
Coogan, and Bill Nye.
Right.
And, he first sits down and they tell him that he's transferring to Sanford and he's like, you want to take this higher? He's like, yeah. And Steve Coogan sits down and he tells him that he's going to Sanford. And then finally, he's like, you want to take this to the chief inspector? Yes, I do.
You want the chief inspector to come all the way down here?
Yes.
And then he just opens the
He
door.
just happens to be out there. And
Martin Freeman, right, playing his direct boss, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. His sergeant.
You've been making us all look bad. Which is, I absolutely love that. He's like, but what's the team going to think about this? And as he opens up the door, they have a banner and says, good luck, Nicholas. And they pop the champagne.
But no,
corks.
what I liked before that line was, but sir, you can't just make people disappear.
Yes, I can.
Yes,
I'm the
I
chief
can.
inspector. He can do whatever he wants. So Nicholas gets sent to Sanford, and he when he gets to Sanford, it's a small town, but he immediately starts doing the exact same shit he did when he was in London.
Right.
He was being super fucking cop, and he while going to the pub to grab a pint, he immediately
A pint or a glass of cranberry juice.
Oh, that's right. It's a glass
It's
of cranberry juice. Right. So he eventually, then he cracks down on.
I mean, everybody else is drinking beers.
He cracks down on the kids who were 17. How
Yep,
old are
under
you?
18, yep.
When were you born? February 3rd, 1960. Out.
Yeah.
When were you born? Out.
What was the date the kid said where he's like,
You're 39.
No, I like when he says, I like the one kid who's like, February 1st of what year? Every year?
Every year. And
that's good.
I just love the whole idea of it, that they are the England's greatest village, right? They win Village of the Year every year. And
right.
that's what they care about. Yeah. And their big problem is that the living statue has returned. A great big bushy beard. And, Nicholas starts putting everything together. And as he's putting everything together, he starts thinking like this person was killed because of this mortgage scheme scandal.
Right,
and these property prices. This person was killed because of this. And then it turns out, no, the florist was killed because she was the best florist and she was going to the next town.
She was moving away.
Their biggest competitor. So she was killed. The other guy who was involved with the property scandal and the mortgage scheme and stuff like that, instead of being killed for that reason, he was being killed because he murdered Bill Shakespeare. He starts thinking that, like, they have this theme of the greater good.
Or the guy who got killed because his house didn't fit the theme for the village.
Right, exactly.
Because he had a huge, a mansion.
It's all these, so the entire time in the movie, Nicholas Angel's trying to prove that these murders are happening for a reason, that there's a reason behind them. And he finds these logical, plausible, real world explanations why a normal person would commit murder.
Right.
And then it turns out that they just killed people because it was not good for the town. It was all about winning town of the year.
It was for the greater good.
The greater good.
The greater good of the town.
And I do love when they are, what was that? Was that German? Were you Hans Gruber there?
No, I thought it was Arnold.
It was Arnold.
I thought it was
Thank
Arnold.
You, Arnold. It was Arnold.
You're welcome.
For the greater good.
What does that have to do with any of this?
Wrong movie, wrong country, whatever.
I'm not good with accents. I just do whatever I want.
You remind me of I Love You Man every time, where he can't help but do like a Jamaican accent.
Oh, yeah. Slap the bass.
You can tell all these drinks are
That's
actually
why I
starting to hit us
connect to that movie so much.
Slap it a bass, man.
Slap it at the bass, man.
So anyway, I love that scene where they fake his death with the ketchup packet, which is a little gag that Nick Frost's character pulls earlier on, and he gets dropped into like these catacombs and stuff, and he starts seeing all of the dead bodies of all the people they've killed. They killed the kids that were in hoodies. They killed the living statue, and they killed the teens that were underage drinking, and then they killed his predecessor. The guy who came with the great big bushy beard. And he's down there dead
because
as well.
He started figuring out and questioning things that were happening and that shouldn't be happening.
But he had something you don't have, Nicholas. What's that? A great big bushy beard. And of course, this is the first time Walter Frey shows up in.
Yeah, that's right.
He will come back again in the next film, The World's End. But Walter Frey plays the old farmer who lives out there. He's the one that they confiscated all those massive guns from, and of course the World War II water mine that is sitting in his garage.
I just like that they had to bring along Sergeant Turner. Yeah, and his dog Sam.
And so Nicholas, the entire time that he's there, is butting heads with his new coworkers, just like he did before, by being super comp and everything like that. But these people are so laid back.
The Andes.
And so little. The Andes, right. We call them that because they're both named Andy.
Because they're both called Andrew.
And, those are my favorite jokes in the movie, is like these little things. Like, they all have these little jokes they think are clever, but Nicholas figures them out right away. And they automatically hate him because he doesn't know how to laugh. He doesn't know how to have fun. He doesn't know how to ignore a problem. He picks at it until he solves the problem, which winds up being sort of the best thing and worst thing that happened to this town at the same time. I do love all of that. But like, there's that scene when he's first checking into his hotel while he's waiting for his cottage to be ready, and he's answering the crossword puzzle, and it's like fascist. I'm sorry, what? And it's like 11 down.
It's fascism.
Fascism. And then he's like, hag, 3 across. And then, of course, later on, when he's having the fight out in Sanford.
Which I think that's the best scene in the movie.
And they're having
shootout.
The massive shootout is, she screams fascist at him and he shoots her in the leg, of course, because during that shootout, not one person actually dies.
Right.
They're all incapacitated by a bullet or by something else. No one actually dies there. And in that shootout, she screams at him fascist, and he shoots her, incapacitates her, and says hag. Yeah, but that shootout is absolutely fantastic because that's when all the callbacks from the rest of it come in. One of the cool things that I really, really enjoy is when they're taking on the supermarket.
Yeah.
They got 2 guys behind the counter and
the butchers.
The butchers and an unlimited supply of cutlery.
I mean, unlimited. I thought they had an end at the supermarket, but they were just throwing them.
I love when they hit the jar of marinara sauce and it breaks in one of the Andy's faces. It's like, ah! Everyone thought he got hit for real. And the other Andy actually gets like upset.
Yeah.
And like his twin was killed. But of course, he wasn't actually hit and everything like that. And then they take out the two butchers, and they kind of have like a little joke around. And Nicholas starts fitting in with all of them, like right there at that moment when he starts fitting in with all of them.
Yeah.
And they have a line where it's like, we got to beat these guys because we got to move on to the next boss, which is to the big boss, which is like an homage to video games. Again, just like in Shaun of the Dead, paying homage to where this series was kind of like created. Saying you're going to the big boss, that's a video game like metaphor.
Right,
you're going on. You just defeated the mini boss. Now you got to go to the big boss,
right?
Which is Timothy Dalton. And I absolutely love that. But I also love when Nicholas Angel starts embracing what Butterman's been telling him the entire time. And he's just like, he talks about how he just put the trolley boy into the freezer. And he's like, did you tell him something cool? Like cool off? And he's like, actually, no, I didn't say anything. But earlier you missed it where I hit him over the head with the peace lily. And I told him playtime's over.
Yeah. But yeah, even after
shame.
Even after the butchers are down, and then the girl comes running over, ready to attack, and Doris grabs the sign for the wet floor sign. She smacks her over the head.
Everyone loves a little girl on girl
action. I love it. It's so funny.
And then, of course, everything does come to a head between Nicholas Angel and the fun runner, Timothy Dalton, who... and
Sissy.
That's right.
Cousin Sissy.
Cousin Sissy. Which is the reason he killed his own cousin. Not because she was a florist, but because she called him Cousin Sissy. They fight in the mini town of Sanford, which is like this little miniature version of the town that they had in the park that was meant to represent the perfection of Sanford. And after Nicholas Angel and the rest of the police force have destroyed Sanford the whole way, they then go to this mini village version of Sanford and destroy it again. And this is where Timothy Dalton grabs Arn Anderson and calls him the ginger nut, hence giving me my cocktail, the Greater Good Ginger Nut. And as Timothy Dalton's running away, Nicholas Angel does nothing to him. He trips on a delivery truck, falls chin forward into a steeple, the same steeple spire that fell down on top of the reporter.
Is this the scene with the swan that comes over?
And the swan flies right overhead. The swan they've been trying to catch the entire movie. The fact that I don't think I could ever sit down and write a script with callbacks like this.
Right. It's so good.
It's so subtle, but it works so well that if you watch it in the right frame of mind, you might actually bust a gut while watching it.
Yeah.
You might actually pop a stitch in your side, cracking up. And
the right dose of quote unquote medicine.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And it's absolutely fantastic. And I do love the fact that just because you think it's over, it's not over.
Yeah.
It doesn't even end there. And they leave you with the mystery, just like playing homage as this movie does to all of its predecessors. We get this of American action films. We get the scene from Bad Boys, right? Where Nicholas Angel and Butterman are standing in the middle of the town square, and they do the Michael Bay camera spin around on them. We get
the slow-mo diving action shooting.
Right. We get Point Break at one point when Butterman has a chance to shoot his father, the chief of police, and doesn't, and he fires his gun up in the air
and
just
screams.
like Point Break. And then we also get Lethal Weapon 2. Because we think that Butterman's dead, just like we think that Riggs is dead. And then the movie picks up and we find out that Butterman's not dead.
Right.
And that him and Nicholas are basically now running the police force and still partners and still out there having fun. Nicholas went from a career man who thought of nothing else to a man who learned to
have a little fun with be
a human being,
be a human, have friends. Have a best friend at that, yeah.
Absolutely.
Other than your peace lily,
right? Which he broke over the trolley boy's head. Which the trolley boy is from Game of Thrones as well. He plays Sandor Clegane, the Hound.
Oh, that's right.
Yarp.
I forgot about that.
Yarp.
Yarp.
Narp.
Narp.
Like I said, it's so tough to pick whether Shaun of the Dead is my favorite or Hot Fuzz is my favorite. But motherfucker, I love Hot Fuzz so much. And they're both on Netflix right now. World's End is nowhere. Like, you have to rent it or buy it if you want to watch it. But
little bizarre. I mean, I don't know why. I guess because it is a little bit different than. I don't think it's quite as beloved as the previous two movies.
I think that's exactly it.
You know,
that's 100% true. And I don't know if that's truly deserved, because I mean,
well, we're gonna get into that in a little bit, but I do think it's somewhat deserving because of the fact that, like I said before, it's kind of a two-hander. It goes into a movie one side,
which I don't know about you,
a whole different kind of side. I mean, it's a whole different kind of movie. In the second half.
Anytime a lady handles my member, it's a two-hander. Not true. Shouldn't have said it. But no, Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead both, they are this perfect blend of like setup and payoff. Like they do it so well. Right. And I think that's where, you know, The World's End lacks a little bit. I think it's set up, it's a little bit more deeper. It's a little bit more psychological, getting into, you know, getting into one of the characters' mindsets and not so much.
And maybe perhaps the story arc isn't quite as good. You know, because you're initially going to be following these five guys. You're not walking away with five guys.
Right.
You know, there's some things left open.
Not to mention, interpretation. It's five people, five storylines, five, you know, things that they're trying to, you know, to tell a story about. Whereas Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead, it's really two people.
Right.
Yeah.
And mainly one, right?
Mainly one, right.
You're mainly following Shaun. You're mainly following Nicholas. And then in the last one, I mean, you are mainly following Gary King, but in honesty, you're following all of them. You're liking all of them, right? Like, there's something about all of them that you like. And honestly, more so, like, you find Gary King, the main character, to be annoying.
The one that you dislike, right?
Right, but it's Nick Frost's character that you are really rooting for. He's the one you feel for. He's the one that you know.
He's the most progressive arc.
And he's also the narrator of the story, pretty much.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I think that is kind of the difference. There was a little bit too much fit into World's End 2-hour running time, where it's why it's probably the least of the three, but still a fantastic movie. I don't want to take that away from it. Of course. But I think Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead are so well remembered. Not to mention, they came out 2004 and 2007.
Right. It's a big gap.
It's a big gap. Right. You have a 6-year gap from 2007 to 2013 when World's End came out. It was a long time.
When I think of the movies, I'm watching a zombie movie, an action movie, and then some kind of weird sci-fi movie.
The Day the Earth Stood Still is what you're watching. Yeah. You're watching a 50s sci-fi movie.
Exactly. And zombies, obviously,
it's a genre.
Love zombie movies.
Right. It's a genre that not a lot of people
action
love.
Movie. Right. And I mean, once, you know, you find out watching World's End that there's robots, spoiler.
Right. It's Invasion of the Body Snatcher, stuff like that.
Exactly. And Noah,
it's not easy to throw on just like that.
I thought of like The Faculty. It's a fun movie to watch.
Right.
Would I put it in my favorite?
But which again is an homage to like 50s, 50s, you know, sci-fi films like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, The Day the Earth Stood Still, stuff like that. You know, that's what it's paying homage to. That's what it's doing there. And it's a genre that has kind of gone by the wayside a little bit, where action films are still prominent. Horror, gory zombie films are still somewhat prominent and relevant. That 50s sci-fi element, not so much.
Trial and error. Usually they're very low budget, corny movies that get swept under the rug.
Right.
Ex Machina.
Okay, I'm not saying Ex Machina.
Blade Runner, replicants taking over, stuff like. But no, but that's what that genre, that 50s genre, has evolved into.
Mm-hmm.
Is what I'm saying. So it's like I think the fan base for it and the attraction to it is less. Not that really hurts the movie, because the movie is still, you know, fantastic.
No, it is.
It's just that these are the things that go towards making it not the best one.
Right. The previous two pack more of a punch.
They
and especially an enjoyable factor throughout.
Right. And I mean, let's face it, fame wasn't there when the first two were made, right?
It took time, but it also takes time to make these movies, obviously. I mean, you see it on screen. It takes a lot of writing and prep and directing prep and editing to get these movies right.
These movies together, all three of them, $38 million is what they cost to make.
Which isn't a lot when you're making
all three of them
a big budget film, right?
What they gross together is $156 million.
Right.
So they're still not that high grossing either.
That's worldwide too?
No, I'm not sure if that's worldwide numbers, but that's or what they're saying is like that's the average. Maybe average they each cost $38 million. Maybe
But I think these are movies
the fact is they're low budget and they make a lot more than they
and
really
I think
should.
these are movies that in time someone else will discover it, show it to their friends, show it to their kids.
These hold up. They hold up still.
Exactly.
Yeah. Even to this day. I mean,
as a teenager, I'm 100% showing my daughter these
movies. Right, because
absolutely.
Even Shaun of the Dead was 2004?
But now let's all right, so now do people need to have a precursor to these movies, right? Like, is your enjoyment of Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, and The World's End, is it increased by having seen the Romero zombie films? Is it increased by seeing those Michael Bay American action films?
Probably
and
not.
those 50s sci-fi films? Is it increased by it?
It's hard to say.
I don't think so.
I feel like these movies are like a Band-Aid. You just got to rip the Band-Aid right off. Just throw it on, see if you go for it.
For 100%, my enjoyment is increased by the fact that I have a background in those movies.
See,
I love those
but that's what
movies.
you were saying, how you and Kenny came across Shaun of the Dead was because of...
We had a love for Romero.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I like zombie movies beforehand. I was never really into action movies, but I still watch Hot Fuzz.
Have you seen Point Break, the original Point Break?
I've never seen Point Break, but I did see Bad Boys.
You never seen Bad Boys 2?
I saw Bad Boys 1 and 2. Apparently seeing Bad Boys number 3 when it comes out.
Yeah, probably.
All right, let's head over and let's get into Jay's film, The World's End.
Have you got any plans for dinner at all?
Tonight, we will be partaking of a liquid repast as we wend our way up the Golden Mile, commencing with an inaugural tankard in the first post, then onto the Old Familiar, the famous cock, the cross hands, the good companions, the trusty servant, the two-headed dog, the mermaid, the beehive, the king's head, and the hole in the wall for a measure of the same, all before the last bittersweet pint in that most fateful terminus, the World's End. Leave a light on, good lady, for though we may return with a twinkle in our eyes, we will in truth be blind. Drunk.
Christ, no! We just need a fucking word so we can identify who's who. Like, he's a blank. She's a blank. Those two people are definitely blanks.
Well, it's weird, isn't it? You come back and everything's the same, but sort of different.
We want to be free to do what we want to do. Yeah. We want to get loaded. Yeah. And we want to have a good time.
I'm not proud of it.
I am a bit.
Gary thinks we should keep up with the crew because they know what we're doing, but they don't know that we know what they're doing. And basically, no one else has a better idea. So fuck it.
I think you bit off more than you can chew with us, mate. Yeah, because we are more belligerent, more stubborn, and more idiotic than you can possibly imagine.
It's pointless arguing with you. You will be left to your own devices.
Really?
Yeah. Fuck.
Who the hell do you think you are?
Me? They call me the king.
All right, Jay, World's End. This is the first time that you saw it beginning to end. Because you only watched the first half hour.
When you figured out that there was robots in it.
when you figured out there were blanks in it. So what are your favorite bits of this movie? What about this movie, got your juices going, man?
Really, Simon Pegg and his acting in the first half, when it's the four friends, when they're finally together, when he's obviously recruiting all these guys, they're established, they're family men, they're successful company guys.
If you were more charismatic, I could see you doing this.
Yeah.
I could see you being Gary King.
Yeah.
His opening monologue is so self-reverent to who he used to be.
Except I don't see Jay ever dyeing his hair.
I'm not.
He goes through all
I'm
his.
not really that person at all.
No.
I mean,
but he goes through all of his friends, and he talks about little bits.
I understand where he's coming from, though. I really do.
And he takes jab at all of them. Like his name was Omen. We called him O-Man because he had a birthmark, in the shape of a 6 on his forehead.
And he's a dick,
Right.
and they know it, and he embraces it. He knows it,
but he ends that monologue by saying, "And they called me the King because that's my name, Gary King." Right? And it's so bravado, right? And it's so it's the perfect asshole. And I think by the time this movie came out in 2013, I was enough of an adult that I can recognize that. Where maybe if I saw this when I was 16, I'd be like, "Fuck yeah, I love Gary King."
Yeah.
But by the time I'm in my mid-20s, I'm like, "No, you fucking asshole! No one wants to be you. You're just a guy grasping at straws."
Well, that's the nice thing about these movies. You're growing with them. The movies, right?
It's like Harry Potter. I'm growing up with them.
Exactly.
But that's the question that it addresses, I mean, they bring that up, and his friends bring that up throughout the movie, and they talk about their current lives and what happened in the past and why he's doing the things that he's still doing.
The difference between
and what's the meaning of it all?
The difference between me and Gary King's friends who all go on this adventure with him, they're all loathing and lamenting it and hating every minute of it. Whereas I would love to have a night drinking with all my old friends, right? Like my bachelor party was that. I don't want it every weekend. I don't want it all the time, but I can really enjoy it when it happens. And
I feel like you would have invited me along too.
Yeah, but I would invite my wife. Yeah, because I think my wife's a lot of fun. So more fun than most of the people I know. So no offense.
I do feel like people need to do this more often, though, and that's the thing that I honestly I enjoyed the first half of the movie more because I liked the questions and I liked the weird moments that they had because it was really realistic. I mean, people are like that. They don't want to be bothered. They don't want to be falling out of their routines of whatever they're doing.
I will say this.
They don't want to rehash things sometimes.
To your indie sentiment, with how much you like
it was going somewhere that I was intrigued by. It never got to that point.
This is the most human of the Cornetto Trilogy, because this movie eventually breaks down at the end when he's facing off against the blanks, the supercomputer, the network. He's facing off against it. That is the most human nature, that broken down in drunken rant. That is the human condition. There's a million Gary Kings out there, but you just said, "I know what I fucking said." Yeah. But it is that is the human condition broken down into a drunken rant, and it's true,
especially for him.
I mean, I know what I fucking said.
Yeah.
Fine, we'll leave. Are you serious? Yeah. Fuck it.
Which was voiced by Billy Nye.
This is one of the things that I didn't know. That was voiced by Billy Nye. He's been in all 3 of the movies, but I had heard that he was in this movie, and I couldn't find him. I was like, maybe he's like a background character or something. And we're watching it a couple weeks ago, and Lauren's looking at IMDb. She goes, "Now he's the voice of the network." And I was like, "Really?" I was like, "That does not sound like him. It sounds super chipper."
Yeah.
You're so used to hearing him being like, well. He didn't sound like that when he's playing the network, but I think the dynamic of a group of friends is what's different. It's an entire group. But do you have a favorite character, Jay? Do you relate to Gary King more?
He's got to, right?
Would you want to do a Golden Mile? I mean, would you want to do 12 pubs?
Absolutely.
I would.
No,
not.
that's the thing. No, absolutely.
Well, I mean,
12 pubs, 12 beers. That's what they kept on saying. They weren't saying
these are pints.
More than
these are 16 ounces or more.
We can do it.
We drink 12-ounce beers.
We can do it.
I need an hour between each one.
No. Shut up.
We're going to start at 5 p.m.
Stop trying to think responsible about it. You just go for it.
Can I drink
for it. You can drink some water in between.
I love when Nick Frost goes in and he orders a pint of water, right?
Yeah.
When we were describing your cocktail, I got to go back a little bit here.
Sure.
When we were talking about your cocktail, you couldn't figure out what to do because you hadn't seen this movie in at least a long time or even all of it. And I was like, well, you got to use beer because the whole point is to drink a pint at all the things. So you have to use beer in your cocktail. It has to be done. And and I even the scene where they go into the first pub and he's like, what do you got? He's like, does it have a bit of a fruity note that lingers on the tongue? Like, what is it? He goes, we got beer. It's like, 5 of those. And he pours, Nicholas Frost's character a water. Yeah, he pours Andy a water, and Andy, he's like, he has to go on this like rant about how tough you have to be to finish a rugby game and go into a bar with a group of people and be the only one who orders a water, right? Like, and
with no ice.
That's adult as shit. Like, that's adult as shit.
And he even brings that up. He's like, that's an adult.
Right.
That's a fucking, mature
that's a man. That's what a man. No, and it's like, I can never
after all these guys drinking beer and
but he has a good reason.
I'll take a water.
He has a good reason for not drinking. Because last time he got drunk, which was when he was in his youth, he got into a car accident because of Gary King, and his femoral artery was severed because of that accident, and Gary King ran off.
Just left him, right?
Left him. Now, Gary probably didn't know that he was going to bleed out, but Andy eventually got arrested for that, and, that was the last time he had a drink. He almost died.
And probably last time he saw Gary King and just wanted to leave that left behind him, right?
And of course, the thing that got him to come out was Gary A lied that his mother died because he wanted nothing to do with Gary King.
Right.
But also, Gary King gave him the $600 that he always owed him. And he was like, maybe Gary King has grown up.
And he left with a sentimental note.
But then he
borrowed $200 from the other three.
The other guys.
Genius. And that's the kind of guy that would have done that. An addict.
But Gary King, like, I think about this movie, like, Gary King was
a suicidal addict. I wish they'd kind of touched on that a little bit more. But I guess you didn't really have to because it was implied throughout. He was the bottom of the barrel at the time.
Because that's what you become when you peaked in high school. Like, like that's the bottom. But like,
especially in that kind of way.
When I look at Gary King,
if you're living that lifestyle,
that was me and Kenny in our late 20s. Like that was who we were. Like we were still trying to capture our youth because we hadn't met our significant others at that time, and we didn't know what life was all about then. And I think recapturing your youth is something that every middle-aged man feels
and
like.
Woman.
I feel like that's
Women do it.
But that's what everyone wants to do with their life. Like, when you get to a certain age, you look around and you start realizing that, like, fuck, I am fucking bored. Like, what did I used to do? And then the whole point is, when you go do it, what's adult is the fact that you do it, and then you realize, this sucks.
Yeah.
This is not what I wanted to do.
It's mostly your mindset is different. That's really what it is, I think.
We did the Irish pub crawl one time, right?
Oh gosh.
So
3 years ago, we got on a bus.
No, it was a long time ago.
That was
3 years ago.
No, it was longer than that, Dave.
No, it wasn't. 2014.
When I was
no, it's probably 4 years. Yeah, 3-4 years.
2014.
Yeah, no, he's right. About 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, about 3 years
longer.
ago.
But
me and Lauren were dating for about a year when we did it. So yeah.
Yeah, but I just remember. So the oh god, what is it called? Aaron Express.
The Aaron Express.
So in Philly, there's an Aaron Express that runs around
all throughout the city.
St. Patty's Day, and it drops you off from bar to bar. You hop on a bus, takes you to another bar, you get drunk, you get out, jump on the bus, blah, blah, blah. So you're just doing this all day long. And I did it before, a couple years ago, before I started dating Dave. It was me. It was all of my best friends. We were all together. We had a great time. And that was the day when I was like, I gotta be single. Anyway.
Meaning she slept with some randos that night.
No. I was dating some guy at the time.
Because she bumped into him and then she bumped into him again.
Line from the movie. I like it. But no. What it was, I was dating a guy. We were kind of on and off for a little bit. He was boring. I went out with my friends. We had a good time on the Aaron Express.
What she's saying is now she likes boring.
But I broke up with that guy. Whatever. Anyway, and then I started dating you, and then me and you, and then my best friend who we went out with, Tara, and her now husband Ryan went out, and then Jay came along
at that point.
Yeah, and we're like, let's do the Aaron Express. And after a while,
6 to 7 bars in, I think
it was fun. But after a while, we're like, ugh.
We had to make the fun. That was the problem.
Right.
Nobody else seemed to be... First of all, it wasn't that busy.
And maybe that's what it was.
The buses weren't that packed. The bars weren't that packed.
Maybe it was just our age.
The weather was a little gloomy.
Right. I just remember, oh man, this is not the same from a couple years ago.
And we were doing that.
At
least after a certain point.
remember having a headache by like bar 6 or 7 and being like, I'm done. But like,
but you have to stick it out.
But that's kind of exactly what Gary King realized when he got back to.
It's not fun anymore.
Right, he got to Newton Haven. They get to the first bar, and he's expecting this joyous welcome from the bartender.
Right.
It's like Gary King and the crew, and he's like, he has to explain who he is, and he starts finding out that like pubs in little villages have become Starbucks, right? Like everything is like homogenized. They're serving the same beer at every bar,
and every bar looks
the
exactly
same.
the same. Yep.
And they're all well lit, right? And he's like, they even mention like, and it's like still smells the same, and it's like, I bet they tried to get that out now. Yeah, like that's, when you're that age, everyone else is going to feel the wear, and Gary is refusing to admit that he feels it. That he
fights tooth and nail.
Right,
I mean, all the way until
the point that
halfway point, essentially, when he's still dragging his friends around, suffering through the bars, and they're at bar 6 or so, and they're halfway through there, and then all of a sudden, shit changes in the movie. I mean, and collides in the bathroom, taking a leak. And
does anyone else
he comes to blows with one of the members of a crew that reminds him of his youth,
right,
and his friends.
But I tried to figure this out several times. Why does the robot kick the hairdryer on? Right, is that to like the noise to cover up the fight that they're going to have?
Maybe.
Why do they always try to palm your face?
Uh-huh.
They try to like palm your face when they fight. Like they don't throw punches or anything.
Well,
they try to like palm your face.
If you see later on, one of his friends gets taken over by them. And they just sort of gaze into it, so like the beam of light sucks into their eyes and their face.
So they're scanning your DNA, like
right,
to make it part of the network, so that they can replicate.
And so it takes a little bit of time, but
I love when Gary King sees his replicated self, and he's like, "Oh my God, I was so fucking cute." Yeah. There's only one Gary King.
But I even like Pierce Brosnan showing up as the teacher.
He shows up as the teacher who they all loved as a child, as children.
Well,
and then
Gary loved him as a child.
I hated that goatee. Ugh, it's terrible. That's why he doesn't grow out beard.
It's the
Pierce Brosnan is one of those guys, old guys I would totally sleep with.
It's the second James Bond in the Cornetto trilogy, because Timothy Dalton was James Bond.
Good point.
So
I hated him though.
Second James Bond. Yeah, Pierce Brosnan was the better of those two, for sure.
Oh yeah.
I also love the scene where, they go to Mr. Green and he does the knocks, and Mr. Green like, is this guy, like everything's changed. And that's I think that's you can't go home again. You can never go home because you've changed. No matter how much for them, home had changed, but in the end, like home doesn't change that much. It's you that changes. And Gary's refusal to change is ultimately what causes the world, the apocalypse, for right or wrong. And I think like you can actually debate that by the end of this movie, whether they were right to fight the network or whether they were wrong to do it. But like the network was failing just as much as humanity was, right? Like the network thought that they only needed to complete, I think it was like 20 to 30% assimilation for them to successfully adapt the human race enough to join the greater galactic world that's out there. And what they wound up finding was that in Newton Haven and the other pockets they set up, it was almost 98% like assimilation, where it's like they have to completely assimilate almost everybody on Earth to stop Earth's destructive nature. A human destructive nature. And Gary perfectly proves that to him by drunkenly ranting and arguing with the network, and the network it's my favorite part of the movie. I crack up every time when the network just goes,
it makes drunk sense.
Whatever. Fuck it.
Right, because you're the sober guy and you're arguing with someone who's lit up, and you're like, there's just no point of talking to this asshole.
There was a time, my dad's going to absolutely love this story, trust me, but he'll love the fact that I was sober. I was the sober guy when everyone else dropped acid before.
Oh my.
Do you have any idea how incredibly frustrating that is? I had a friend who was trying to
Tony, I was not in the picture at this point. I did not drop acid.
I had a friend who was trying to walk across a frozen lake of ice, and I was trying to explain to him that like it's 40 degrees. It may have been frozen a couple days ago, but
it's not frozen
It's
anymore.
not that stable now. And he's like, dude, don't worry. Like, I got like all these reasonings why he could just walk across that ice and be fine. And I remember just going, fuck it. Like, I am so tired of arguing with a person with the eyes the size of a fucking
through
saucer.
the ice and die.
So the funny thing to that story was like he
didn't die
10 feet out and it's Lake Caroline. He falls through the ice and then he's standing because it's only like 3 feet deep. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, it makes sense, right? Everything's like 3 feet.
He probably knew it. He probably knew it in the back of your non-sober mind. He was just like,
shit.
But I've been there. I've been the network, and I'm like, you know what? Fuck it.
Right.
Man, his feet must have been frozen.
Who cares?
I know.
Fuck it. He deserved it.
Yeah, he did.
He probably lost some toes
feel it
that
though.
night.
Dropping acid, you probably didn't feel it.
He also sharpened a stick and tried to hunt deer in the woods after that. So,
oh my god,
it's a good night for that guy.
You go to weird places.
Yeah.
In there. So
I could never take acid.
I hope you're still alive, Joe, and I hope you don't hear this story on my podcast. I won't use a last name.
That's pretty tame, though.
It's pretty tame. But I mean, like, I feel like everybody's had that moment where you're arguing with a drunk friend.
I mean, if you drop the guy's name, remember the guy that drunk?
I can honestly say I don't remember a time where I was not drunk. I'm pretty sure I've always been just the drunk guy. I don't think I've ever argued with a non-drunk, I'm sober and they're drunk. Because more than likely, we all went out together and I'm just as drunk or more drunk than you. Have I? No. Probably not.
I don't know. You started an argument on New Year's Eve when we were driving home. An argument that I was just like, fuck this. I'm not even talking about this anymore. And then we both were like, shut up, stop talking about it.
I know. We were mad at each other.
But we weren't even like, neither of us were like, I don't know how drunk you were, but I wasn't. So I was like, I'm not having this conversation. We just need to stop. Like, I was just driving. And we drove home in complete silence.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I shut the network down.
Yeah.
So I've been there. I've been the network before and I've shut it down.
Happy 2019.
So what do you guys think of the end of The World's End, right? Like they have this great adventure, they fight the robots, they save the world, quote unquote, and the whole world goes pretty much back to the Stone Ages.
Right.
And in the end, while the whole world is reeling from the loss of technology and stuff like that, Gary King actually becomes Gary, like the king, like he becomes,
right.
And he is the one fighting for equality. He's wandering around with what's left of the blanks. He's wandering around with his old posse, his old crew.
Right.
He's throwing it together. I think it's the most ambiguous ending they had in the Cornetto trilogy.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and the title makes sense, right? The World's End,
right?
The world ends, and it's kind of starting over. I guess you can say if they were going to go that route, it's fitting for the characters.
It's fitting for the genre of the movie because
and technically the drama.
It's the movie ending that I'm like, I don't really care for it too much. At first, I didn't care for it because the world ended.
I was surprised that it happened that way.
Like,
it was not the ending that I expected to go.
Right. You wanted everyone to go off and be happy. Gary maybe
it's almost
grows
as if
up.
you can go three ways. This is like three different stories. Not three different stories, but three different kind of tones of a certain movie where it goes. And it opens up, like I said, kind of like a weird character study movie. The guy just wants to get together with his boys and get some shit get some shit going on in his town or rehash some old memories and things, and then it turns into this like sci-fi action mystery thriller of sorts, and then you got the apocalypse.
Right,
I mean, it's just
exactly.
like it turns into shit, and everything's like kind of just a blank slate again.
Right, and that's why it's like it could have ended a couple different ways, and when it ended the way it ended with the world ending,
and they chose to do that. It could have just destroyed the town, and that was it.
They could have, but exactly, and everyone could have gone off and lived happily ever. And just lived happily ever after. But the entire world.
Yeah.
Done, over with.
I don't know.
Right, but that's all because Gary King convinced them
through
his drunken logic that they could not change human nature, and they stopped trying after that. Because he not only pointed out that Newton Haven was 90% blanks, but he also pointed out that every other settlement and that they had set up was also 90%.
And how long was Martin Freeman a blank in that movie?
From about the middle of the movie on.
Middle movie?
Yeah.
Right.
Wait, what?
Martin Freeman, yeah.
Martin Freeman
He was not
a
a blank the entire time.
How did I lose when he transitioned?
Right, you don't exactly know. It's
You
when,
don't
It's when he
see it,
It's when
right.
he loses the birthmark. I'm sorry.
Right.
It's when he gains the birthmark back. They realize he has it because the DNA they had on file,
Right,
he
had
still
a
had the
birthmark, right.
Well, I don't like that at all then.
He had it surgically removed, so he was not.
I never
a blank.
understood how.
Well, he
that
didn't
came
live
about.
so none of them lived in Newton Haven anymore.
Right.
So he couldn't be he
I
couldn't
know, but like, it's such a fucking cop out.
he couldn't be
You know, that kind of pisses me off now.
he couldn't be a blank coming there because he wasn't a blank to begin with.
Yeah.
Right.
He had to get turned into a blank.
I don't know where that could have happened. I mean, I guess if you rewatched the movie, you could have seen maybe a little a glimpse of a moment when that could have happened. But
I'm sure there is
We'll
a
see.
moment in it.
yeah, there might be. There might
Maybe,
be.
yeah, there
could be a
is, and we
cutaway.
just all missed it.
So one of the things that I do like about World's End is I think it's the one that can spark the most conversation. Where the other two can spark the most laughs. You can have a
It's
lot
a
of
fun
with
laughter
them.
movie. It's
Right.
more of a genre movie. This one is less of a genre movie and more of a
It's certainly
a mashup.
It's totally a genre movie. It's
but
well,
it's
of sorts, sure, but it's more of a mashup of a lot of different kind of themes.
It's
Right,
certainly the most adult of them, though.
yeah.
It drops while it has a lot of juvenile fun, it drops a lot on you as an adult. So look, dude, World's End, what I wanted to get at when we got to World's End was that I don't feel like it's just desserts. I don't think it gets talked about enough. It's the one that gets talked about the least. I think people need to give it another shot, and I think people really need to watch it in the same way that they watch Shaun of the Dead and
I
Hot
agree
Fuzz.
too.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I think it has the most to digest in it. It may not have the most to enjoy in it.
And maybe it takes a certain age and mindset to actually get
Maybe
into
it
that.
does.
Because I don't think it's a teenage movie.
I remember the first time watching
Teenagers aren't going to relate to this movie
I remember
as much as we will.
The first time watching it, I remember being like a little let down. I remember
Right.
enjoying it, but I was a little let
Yeah,
down.
but when was the last time you saw it?
A couple weeks.
A couple weeks ago.
Did you like it a lot more now?
Loved it a lot.
Oh yeah,
Exactly.
now
Because
we
we're
love
older
it.
and we're in that kind of
Right.
headspace with the friends.
So
We're adults.
because World's
At
End
least not so much.
didn't get it's just desserts.
Sure.
And because Dudi told us we had to do this and he pays us through our Patreon, and Lauren's kindly enough to sit through this, we have 3 cornettos in our hands.
We do.
We do.
Are just desserts. We are going
Should
to
we take a photo bomb of this?
No. No. Just like Nick Frost in Hot Fuzz, we are going to bite the heads off of this.
And Dudi, other than the other two guys here, J and D, I'm not mad at you for making me do this.
Yeah, me and Jay both have
I love ice
We're
cream.
mad.
We both have sensitive teeth, and we both succumb to brain freeze very easily. Lauren does not. So this is for Dudi. We're doing this on air. Everybody's going to have to bite the head off.
Fuck you, Dudi.
Everyone's going to have to bite we call them drumsticks here, but everyone's going to have to bite the head off their cornetto. Ooh. Thank God I swallowed mine quickly. Oh.
So am I the only one with no problems? Because I quite enjoyed that.
I had a little bit of pain, but I'm good.
0 pain.
Jay, this is as bad as when you had to chug a full beer on the show.
You see some ice cream popping out of Jay's cone? I
Well,
don't think
Jay-
he got the entire thing.
It's all over now. That was tough. 'Cause
That was
you
easy.
guys like swallowed that shit whole or something.
Yeah, I did. I mostly did.
I love ice
Oh,
cream.
you're-
I don't
you
really get
copped
brain
out, David.
freeze.
I was chewing that thing and suffering.
No, I just swallowed my ice cream whole. So there you go, Dudi. We all bit the head off of Cornetto, and I swallowed it whole. Lauren finished it lovingly,
Redo.
and Jay, like a dumbass with sensitive teeth, tried to bite his ice
Bite
cream.
the ice cream. You should took some of the cone
You're
with
like
it.
Jay. You're like a dog when you get an ice cream. Like dogs don't know how to lick, right? Like they lick it for a little bit and then they try
And then
biting
start
it.
trying to bite.
Dudi, I took it like a champ.
That's what you did.
I would totally do it all over again.
So I hope you guys enjoyed this triple movie cocktail. 3 cocktails, 3 movies. I hope you guys love the Cornetto Trilogy as much as we do. If you haven't given The World's End It's Just Desserts, make sure that you check it out. If you want to try to take the Cornetto Challenge and bite the entire head of a Cornetto, I would love you guys to send me videos of that. You can send them to Jay on Facebook, Super Movie Bros Podcast on there. You can send them to me on Twitter at Super Movie Pod.
And for those of you who follow me on Facebook or are friends with me on Facebook, send them me on Facebook. I don't mind.
You can check out all 3 of these cocktails over at podfixnetwork.com, and you can check out the movie cocktail page on there from the menu. Also, if you drink too much of these cocktails, make sure that you join our sponsor at forhangovers.com and use the promo code SMBFish to get your 15% off your miracle hangover cure. I want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank Dudi for assigning us this movie cocktail on Patreon. If you would like to assign us movie cocktails on Patreon, head over to patreon.com/supermoviebrospodcast and join our Patreon. You can get additional content there, pick an item from the loot chest, or assign us movie homeworks, or even direct us into movie cocktails. I want to thank all of you for listening. Have a fantastic night. Cheers.
Cheers.
You will be left to your own devices.
Really?
Yeah. Fuck it.